Robert Kiyosaki begins his story by introducing two men who shaped his understanding of money and life. His biological father, the poor dad, who was highly educated and worked diligently for a secure government job, and his friend's father, the rich dad, a self-made entrepreneur who viewed money as a tool for creating freedom. From childhood, Robert noticed how differently they approached work, risk, and success. While his father emphasized the importance of grades, job security, and steady income, the rich dad challenged him to see money as a vehicle that could work for him. This contrast set the stage for a fundamental lesson. The path to wealth begins with mindset. It is not solely about the knowledge acquired in schools or the hours spent at work, but about the understanding of money and how it operates in the world. As a boy, Robert and his friend began experimenting with small ventures, selling comic books, candy, and other minor goods, under the guidance of Rich Dad. These activities were not merely about profit. They were exercises in observation, negotiation, and understanding cash flow. Through these early experiences, Robert learned that financial success depended on knowledge and action rather than inherited wisdom or academic credentials. Many adults, despite formal education, struggle because they are never taught how to make money work for them. This is true across countries. In the United States, millions graduate with significant student debt and little understanding of budgeting or investment. In India, Brazil, and Nigeria, young professionals often find themselves trading time for wages with limited opportunity to grow wealth independently. Recognizing money as a tool and acquiring the knowledge to wield it effectively forms the foundation of financial intelligence. One of the first critical distinctions Robert learned from Rich Dad was between assets and liabilities. Poor Dad viewed a home as an asset because it accumulated equity over time, but Rich Dad taught that unless an investment generates cash flow, it is a liability. This shifted Robert's perspective on purchases and investments, encouraging him to consider the long-term impact on his financial position rather than the immediate sense of security or social status. The principle is simple yet transformative. Wealth is created by acquiring assets that generate income and avoiding liabilities that drain resources. Across the world, individuals applying this principle make choices that increase financial independence. Investors in Dubai prioritize commercial and rental properties. Tech entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley focus on revenue-generating ventures rather than luxurious residences. And young professionals everywhere are beginning to understand that accumulating status symbols does not equate to building wealth. The journey toward financial mastery is not simply a matter of learning definitions and categories. Robert was taught to approach work as a means of learning, not just earning. While his biological father emphasized climbing the corporate ladder and achieving financial security through steady employment, Rich Dad encouraged him to pursue roles that provided new skills, whether in sales, marketing, negotiation, or management. The focus was on developing competencies that could later be leveraged to generate income independently. In contemporary times, the power of this lesson is evident. Entrepreneurs like Elon Musk deliberately studied diverse fields, gaining knowledge that enabled them to launch multiple successful ventures. In countries like India and Nigeria, young professionals often take roles in established companies not solely for salary, but to acquire expertise that will later allow them to start their own businesses. The lesson is universal. Investing in personal capability yields far greater returns than chasing immediate compensation alone. However, acquiring knowledge and skills is only part of the equation. Robert learned that fear and hesitation often prevent people from acting on opportunities. Poor Dad preached avoidance. Do not risk, do not gamble, and seek safety. Rich Dad countered that fear, if managed intelligently, is a signal to prepare, learn, and act strategically. Many successful entrepreneurs demonstrate this principle daily. Founders of companies like Airbnb and Slack took enormous personal and financial risks, yet their calculated approach to uncertainty enabled them to seize opportunities that others overlooked. Globally, young businesspeople in Southeast Asia and Latin America have similarly transformed local markets by assessing risks, acquiring knowledge, and committing to ventures that might have seemed daunting to conventional thinkers. Through these experiences, Robert internalized that mistakes and setbacks are not failures, but critical teachers. Financial growth comes from learning to embrace calculated risk rather than avoiding it altogether. At the heart of all these lessons lies the understanding that wealth begins in the mind. The poor often see money as scarce, difficult, and dangerous, whereas the rich view it as abundant and a tool for creating opportunities. This difference in perception directly affects behavior. Those with scarcity thinking hesitate, avoid investment, and cling to short-term security. Those with abundance thinking innovate, take calculated risks, and focus on acquiring knowledge and assets. This principle transcends borders. In developed economies like the United States, millennials and Gen Z are leveraging online tools, digital communities, and financial platforms to educate themselves and build assets. Whereas in emerging markets, young entrepreneurs are creating digital businesses, e-commerce ventures, and micro-investment portfolios to escape dependency on traditional employment. Robert's early exposure to these principles taught him that understanding money and cultivating the right mindset creates the conditions for opportunities to be recognized and acted upon. By the end of this formative stage of his education, Robert had internalized several truths. Financial freedom is not about how much one earns, but how well one manages, invests, and multiplies resources. Assets, not salaries or liabilities, are the foundation of wealth. Skills and knowledge are compounding assets that grow in value over time. Fear and hesitation must be managed intelligently to leverage opportunities. And mindset is the lens through which financial realities are perceived. These insights are not theoretical. They are actionable principles that have influenced countless modern entrepreneurs, investors, and professionals globally. As Robert's understanding of money deepened, he began to see that earning a paycheck alone could never create true financial freedom. The rich, he learned, focus on acquiring multiple streams of income, especially those that continue to generate revenue without requiring constant labor. While poor dad celebrated stability and a predictable monthly salary, rich dad demonstrated that income dependent solely on time spent working is inherently limiting. The young Robert observed how his friend's father invested in rental properties, small businesses, and other ventures that produced steady cash flow. These experiences showed him that money, when leveraged intelligently, can generate more money, a lesson far more powerful than any traditional salary could provide. He began experimenting with his own ventures, learning the principles of investment and entrepreneurship firsthand. Small business experiments, like vending machines and neighborhood services, were initially modest in scale but rich in educational value. Each transaction taught him about pricing, marketing, negotiation, and customer psychology. Mistakes were inevitable, yet each failure became an opportunity to understand the mechanics of business and money. The crucial lesson was that entrepreneurship functions as a training ground, preparing one to manage larger, more complex investments in the future. In contemporary terms, many young professionals start side businesses or digital ventures precisely to acquire this kind of experiential knowledge, building competencies that can later be applied on a global scale. Platforms such as Etsy, Shopify, and Fiverr allow individuals across the world, from the United States to Kenya, to test ideas, understand market demand, and scale income streams outside of traditional employment. As Robert matured, Rich Dad taught him that understanding legal structures and taxation is as critical to wealth building as investing itself. Poor Dad viewed taxes as unavoidable burdens, while Rich Dad emphasized using the legal framework to optimize wealth creation. Corporations, partnerships, and strategic investment accounts allow money to be protected and reinvested efficiently. This principle remains highly relevant today. High net worth individuals in the U.S., for instance, use LLCs, trusts, and strategic deductions to legally minimize taxes, reinvesting savings into assets that generate additional income. Similarly, global investors in Singapore, Switzerland, and the UAE employ legal and corporate strategies to enhance returns while remaining compliant. Through these lessons, Robert realized that financial literacy includes understanding how systems work, not merely earning and spending within them. Central to this stage of his financial education was the understanding that opportunity is omnipresent for those prepared to recognize it. Whereas Poor Dad focused on security, Rich Dad's eyes were attuned to gaps in the market and ways to exploit them intelligently. During his teenage years, Robert observed small business owners and local investors who, by understanding cash flow and customer behavior, turned simple ideas into profitable ventures. Globally, similar examples are evident. The rapid growth of telehealth platforms during the COVID-19 pandemic, the rise of digital education startups in India and Southeast Asia, and the expansion of fintech solutions in Africa. Each of these cases illustrates the same principle Rich Dad emphasized. Prepared minds recognize and act upon opportunities that others miss. Yet, recognizing opportunity is insufficient without emotional discipline. Robert learned that fear, impatience, and indecision can destroy potential. Many individuals, when faced with market volatility or entrepreneurial uncertainty, retreat rather than act. By observing Rich Dad and other successful investors, he saw that the wealthy cultivate patience, discipline, and rationality. Decisions are not made impulsively. They are calculated, informed, and aligned with long-term goals. In the modern U.S., long-term index fund investors exemplify this principle, maintaining composure during market downturns and allowing compounded growth over decades. Similarly, investors who navigated the 2008 global financial crisis strategically acquired undervalued assets and emerged stronger, demonstrating that emotional resilience is as crucial to wealth building as knowledge and capital. Leverage emerged as another key insight. Robert understood that wealth grows exponentially when one uses other people's time, money, and expertise. Entrepreneurs rarely act in isolation. They delegate, collaborate, and strategically partner to amplify results. Venture capital, co-investments, and joint ventures illustrate this principle in practice. Globally, small business owners use networks, mentorship, and strategic alliances to scale operations beyond their personal capacity. The lesson was clear. Success is not achieved alone. Leveraging available resources intelligently multiplies the effect of knowledge, capital, and effort. Through these experiences, Robert began to appreciate a subtle but profound truth. Wealth is not a function of inheritance, luck, or mere employment. It is the result of continuous learning, strategic action, disciplined emotion, and intelligent leverage. By observing Rich Dad, he internalized a holistic philosophy. Focus on acquiring cash-flowing assets. Develop skills that increase opportunity. Understand and utilize legal and financial structures. Maintain emotional discipline, and leverage all available resources to amplify results. The combination of these principles forms the bedrock of financial independence, applicable across cultures, economies, and generations. By the time Robert reached adulthood, he was equipped not only with the technical knowledge of money, but also with the practical experience and mindset necessary to act upon it. He had seen firsthand that individuals who understand cash flow, think strategically, and embrace calculated risks are far more likely to achieve financial freedom than those who rely solely on salary or conventional wisdom. This foundation prepared him to pursue larger investments, entrepreneurial ventures, and strategic wealth-building initiatives in a global context. The lesson is universal. Financial independence requires vision, education, courage, and the deliberate application of knowledge in the real world. As Robert progressed in his financial journey, he realized that acquiring income-producing assets alone was insufficient. The ability to invest intelligently became the next critical step. Rich Dad taught him to evaluate opportunities carefully, considering both potential returns and risk exposure. Early investments in small businesses and rental properties allowed Robert to see firsthand how strategic positioning, timing, and market insight could magnify wealth. The key lesson was that money, when invested thoughtfully, grows exponentially, but reckless decisions can deplete resources. This understanding became a cornerstone of his approach to building sustainable financial freedom. He learned that compounding wealth works not only in financial terms, but also in knowledge. Every investment, every business decision, and every failure contributed to an ever-growing understanding of how markets, people, and money interact. For example, investing in a small retail venture taught lessons about customer behavior, pricing strategies, and operational efficiency that could later be applied to larger business opportunities. Globally, similar patterns are evident. In the United States, tech entrepreneurs often start with minimal projects, learn market dynamics, and then scale operations. In India, microfinance ventures and small-scale digital startups provide young professionals with experience and cash flow that can be reinvested in larger projects. The embedded lesson is that each action, when approached strategically, compounds into greater capability and wealth over time. Real estate became a particularly illustrative example. Robert saw how rental properties not only produced consistent income, but also served as a hedge against inflation. In the U.S., real estate investors like Barbara Corcoran leveraged small properties into expansive portfolios that generate cash flow and long-term equity. Globally, investors in Dubai and London utilize real estate not only for income, but also for wealth preservation, capital appreciation, and diversification. Kiyosaki's insight was that the combination of cash flow, equity growth, and leverage creates a powerful engine for wealth creation that outperforms reliance on earned income alone. Each property taught him lessons about financing, maintenance, tenant management, and market timing, reinforcing the principle that practical experience is invaluable. Stock market investing offered another dimension of learning. Robert discovered that understanding businesses, industries, and economic trends is more important than chasing short-term gains. By analyzing companies' fundamentals, he could make informed decisions that minimized risk while maximizing potential returns. This approach mirrors modern strategies employed by investors like Warren Buffett, who emphasizes long-term, value-oriented investments over speculative trades. Globally, retail investors in Europe and Asia apply similar strategies, using online tools and financial education platforms to assess risk and identify high-potential opportunities. The lesson here is that investing is a combination of knowledge, analysis, and patience, not luck or impulsive decision-making. Beyond tangible investments, Robert internalized the value of leveraging knowledge and networks. Mentorship, professional relationships, and collaboration allowed him to scale ventures beyond what he could achieve alone. Rich Dad encouraged him to seek advisors, partners, and experts whose experience could amplify results. In contemporary terms, venture capital, angel investors, and strategic partnerships operate on this principle, providing capital, insight, and access to networks. Globally, entrepreneurs in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America often rely on collaborative structures to overcome resource limitations, demonstrating that leveraging collective intelligence is critical to scaling financial success. Robert realized that wealth is rarely created in isolation. It is the product of coordinated, informed, and strategic action. Equally important was the understanding that emotions can make or break financial decisions. Fear, greed, and impatience often drive poor choices, while discipline, rationality, and foresight enhance outcomes. Robert saw how emotional control allowed Rich Dad to make decisions confidently even in uncertain markets. In the U.S., investors who maintained composure during the 2008 financial crisis acquired undervalued assets and emerged stronger, while panicked sellers suffered losses. Globally, disciplined investors in emerging markets similarly capitalize on opportunities created by volatility. The embedded lesson is that financial intelligence is inseparable from emotional intelligence. Knowledge alone is insufficient without the ability to act rationally under pressure. As Robert's understanding deepened, he recognized that financial freedom is a journey, not a destination. It requires continuous learning, consistent action, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. The wealthy think long-term, viewing each financial decision as a step toward independence rather than an end in itself. By cultivating patience, resilience, and strategic vision, Robert internalized that sustained wealth arises from the disciplined application of knowledge, experience, and resources over time. Globally, this principle manifests in entrepreneurs who grow businesses over decades, investors who compound capital through long-term strategies, and professionals who leverage continuous learning to increase their earning and investing potential. The accumulation of wealth, Robert learned, is a combination of mindset, education, and action. Knowledge of money, assets, and investments provides the tools. Emotional discipline ensures rational application. Leveraging other people's money, time, and expertise multiplies impact. Recognizing opportunity and acting decisively transforms potential into tangible results. By observing and internalizing these principles from Rich Dad, Robert built a framework for achieving financial independence that transcends geography, culture, and time. The lessons apply whether one is starting a small business in the U.S., investing in real estate in Dubai, or launching a digital venture in Southeast Asia. The message is clear. Financial freedom is accessible to anyone willing to think differently, learn continuously, and act strategically. By the time Robert had matured into adulthood, he had internalized that financial freedom is not the result of a single decision, inheritance, or lucky break. It is the culmination of mindset, knowledge, experience, and action applied consistently over time. Every principle Rich Dad taught him, from understanding the difference between assets and liabilities to leveraging opportunities, managing emotions, and using legal structure strategically, formed part of a cohesive system. Wealth is not merely about making money. It is about cultivating habits, acquiring knowledge, taking informed risks, and creating a framework that allows money to grow independently of one's daily labor. Robert saw that assets, whether in the form of businesses, investments, or intellectual property, are the engines of financial independence. He learned to evaluate every opportunity not by its immediate gratification, but by its long-term contribution to cash flow. This mindset led him to invest in rental properties that generated steady income, small businesses that expanded in value over time, and stocks chosen based on careful analysis rather than speculation. In the U.S., many modern investors follow similar strategies, using income-generating assets to move beyond dependence on salaries. Globally, emerging market entrepreneurs in regions such as Southeast Asia and Africa leverage digital platforms to generate revenue streams that compound over time, demonstrating that the principles Robert learned are universally applicable. One of the most profound insights he gained was the importance of continuous learning. Formal education, while valuable, provides only a narrow foundation for financial success. The wealthy cultivate an ongoing practice of self-education, reading financial statements, studying markets, and learning from both personal and observed experiences. Robert applied this by analyzing each venture and investment critically, extracting lessons from mistakes, and refining strategies. Modern parallels are abundant. Self-taught investors, online entrepreneurs, and business leaders worldwide embrace lifelong learning to adapt to changing economic landscapes, innovate, and grow wealth sustainably. Another critical component of his education was leveraging resources intelligently. Time, money, and knowledge are not finite constraints, but assets that can be multiplied through partnerships, mentorship, and strategic investment. Robert saw that successful people rarely act alone. They build networks, seek advice, and collaborate to amplify results. In contemporary America, this is evident in startups that scale rapidly through venture capital, strategic partnerships, and mentorship. Globally, entrepreneurs in Latin America and Africa use similar models, combining local knowledge with external expertise to maximize impact and revenue. The lesson is that individual effort alone has limits. Leveraging the skills, experience, and capital of others creates exponential growth. Robert also internalized that emotional discipline is inseparable from financial success. Fear, impatience, and greed can derail even the most well-conceived plans. Rich Dad modeled the ability to remain calm under uncertainty, to evaluate risk rationally, and to act decisively when opportunities arose. This principle resonates with investors and entrepreneurs worldwide. During the 2008 financial crisis, individuals who remained disciplined acquired undervalued assets and later saw substantial returns. Similarly, during the COVID-19 pandemic, entrepreneurs who assessed market trends carefully and adapted their businesses strategically gained competitive advantages. Emotional intelligence, Robert learned, is as important as financial intelligence. As Robert's understanding of wealth matured, he recognized the importance of seeing the long-term picture. Wealth accumulation is not about instant gratification or short-term profits. It is about deliberate planning, consistent action, and compounding returns over time. He observed that individuals who focus solely on salary, consumption, or immediate status often remain trapped in cycles of financial dependency. Those who acquire assets, continuously educate themselves, manage emotions, and leverage opportunities steadily build independence. This principle applies globally, from young professionals in the U.S. investing in index funds to small business owners in Asia reinvesting profits into scalable ventures. Consistency, patience, and disciplined action transform potential into measurable financial freedom. Robert also came to understand that money itself is not the ultimate goal. Wealth is a tool that enables freedom, creativity, and the ability to pursue meaningful endeavors. Rich Dad taught him that financial independence allows one to focus on personal growth, family, and contribution to society. Modern examples echo this sentiment. Entrepreneurs like Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, and Jack Ma have leveraged wealth to create impact beyond personal gain. Globally, socially minded investors and business leaders use profits to improve communities, support innovation, and address systemic challenges. The lesson is that wealth, when managed intelligently, extends beyond personal security and opens doors to broader purpose. By integrating all these principles, mindset, financial literacy, assets over liabilities, entrepreneurship, leverage, emotional discipline, and long-term perspective, Robert built a systematic approach to financial freedom. Each component reinforces the others. Knowledge informs decisions, disciplined action mitigates risk, and leveraged opportunities accelerate growth. The system is universally applicable. Individuals in the US, Europe, Africa, Asia, or Latin America can follow the same framework. Start by thinking differently about money, learn continuously, invest strategically, cultivate discipline, and leverage available resources. Ultimately, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is not merely a book about money. It is a guide to rethinking how one approaches life, work, and opportunity. Robert's journey demonstrates that the wealthy are not defined solely by income or inheritance, but by their ability to perceive, learn, and act differently. By adopting the principles Rich Dad taught, distinguishing assets from liabilities, acquiring multiple streams of income, embracing entrepreneurship, understanding tax and legal systems, managing emotions, and leveraging resources, anyone can achieve financial independence. The lessons resonate across generations and geographies, offering a roadmap for those willing to commit to a different way of thinking and living. This culmination of insights reveals that financial freedom is not a secret formula reserved for a privileged few. It is a discipline, a mindset, and a set of actions that anyone can adopt. Robert's experiences and the strategies he learned illustrate that wealth is earned not by working harder in a conventional sense, but by thinking strategically, learning continuously, taking calculated risks, and allowing money to work for you. In essence, the book offers a blueprint for transforming not just one's financial situation, but the way one engages with life itself. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.